can they, which I believe the answer, if they decided to dismiss it, it depends on how they dismissed it, but probably not, versus will they? And I think the answer to that is they likely would not, again, based on their willingness to move forward with the criminal negligence. I want to be clear that I think the promise here by the prosecution of we're willing to drop the manslaughter if, judge, you say we can proceed to the criminal negligence case indicates that they're not going to refile on manslaughter.
What will jurors be deciding on when they return Monday to deliberate in that criminally negligent homicide count?
So they're obviously going to be looking at the same set of facts here. I mean, we know the broad brush here that Neely was on the train, that he was acting in a way that was disturbing some people, and that Penny put him in a chokehold for over 6 minutes. We know that Neely died, but there's a lot of the rest of the facts that are in question. And so the jury is going to be looking at the actions, looking at the testimony, and trying to determine, in part, this is in question, the cause of death. Was it just the chokehold, or was it also potentially some medical issues, drug use? They're trying to figure out if Penny acted in a way such that under the statute, they can find that he's negligent, that his actions led to this death, and that he should have known better.
Bring us up to speed on some of the arguments in this case. I know that Penny himself had said some people have been saying I was trying to choke him to death. That is not true. I was trying to restrain him. He said, I saw a man threatening passengers, a lot of whom were people of color, after saying I didn't see a black man threatening passengers. But then you have the prosecution saying he used too much force for too long. Can you break down each side's arguments and really the complexity of this case and maybe why jurors were unable to come to a decision on that first manslaughter count?
I mean, I think you did actually a great job of that, which is for the prosecution, they're saying we have somebody here who, in Penny, who just decided to do too much for too long, that the chokehold was not reasonable under the circumstances, that yes, Neely may have been acting in an erratic way, but that there were other ways to restrain him. There were other better ways to defend himself and others. For the defense here, they are saying that Penny is a hero, that people on that train were scared. They were scared for themselves. They didn't know what was going to happen, and that there was no better way to do this, that in fact, he should be celebrated, that people thanked him. And these are two very different stories. And I think this is part of the reason why it's not just the American public who's looked at this case and people come to different conclusions. It's also the jury. I mean, I think that's why we see them struggling now with a dismissed manslaughter charge and potentially with that negligence charge. It will be really interesting to see if they are able to come to a conclusion. Again, looking at the same facts, but a lower state of mind being required here if they are able to come to a conclusion on the negligence charge.
I mean, jurors heard testimony from subway passengers who witnessed the chokehold, from police who responded, from a Marine Corps instructor who taught Penny chokehold techniques, as well as Penny's relatives and friends. That's an interesting piece of this, is that he has military experience and training. Can you just tell us about the environment in which jurors are being asked to deliberate this? I mean, we know that this is such a hot button issue. There are so many charged emotions on either side. We have people who have experienced some of the threatening, they believe, behavior. I wasn't on that train. I can't say that Neely's behavior was threatening, but people have testified that they felt that it was. But people have had those experiences in New York City. That is the backdrop of which this case is being decided among a jury of Penny's peers.
Well, that's right. And I think the way you frame that question is extraordinarily thoughtful, in the sense that we ask jurors, obviously, not to say, I think this is what should have happened, but not to ignore their life experience. And what they're being shown here is competing testimony. They're being shown basically the same story through different lenses. And of course, they're also thinking about their own experiences, either on public transit or in situations where they felt threatened, or in situations where they felt maybe that they were in danger of somebody putting them, for instance, in a chokehold. And so what we're seeing here, I think, is what always happens, right? The jury is bringing their own life experience. They should not be considering let's be clear, the fact that you and I are talking about this on television, that's separate from their question. But their question is, in a way, very straightforward. Does this amount to criminal negligence? But in a way, very complicated because of all of the competing facts. Because again, we're talking about a Marine. We're talking about a man who is homeless. There are racial issues here. There are issues with what is reasonable when it comes to restraining somebody, and were people reasonably worried about their safety? And all of this is going to be, the jury is going to bring their own life experience to bear on those questions.
Thank you so much for putting that in the necessary context, Jessica Levinson. CBS News has learned that investigators believe the suspect in the deadly shooting of United Healthcare's CEO in Midtown Manhattan is no longer in New York City. A person familiar with the matter believes the suspect may have boarded a bus bound for Atlanta following the incident. The Atlanta Police Department will now be assisting in the multi-state manhunt in an effort to find the gunman. Video shows the suspect exiting a subway station in the area just 30 minutes before the shooting. And new images show the suspect just minutes later walking past a surveillance camera outside of a deli before visiting a Starbucks in the area. Anna Schechter is here with me in Studio 57. She's the senior coordinating producer for our CBS News